recent magazine article carries a picture of the ancient Colosseum of Rome, and it speaks of it as a place where early Christians died for a faith that the world now takes for granted. The writer perhaps spoke more truth than he meant to say about taking our faith for granted. It was not a matter of course in that heyday of the Colosseum, that Flavium, and that amphitheater. Still a showplace in modern Rome was built by Jewish slaves. The outside walls cost more than $50 million. It is a place that seats no less than 50,000 people. In its arenas, gladiators and wild beasts fought for public entertainment. 1,000 animals were slain on an emperor's birthday. If we had sat in those grandstands amidst the grandeur that was Rome, we might have been deceived. For it was not the howling mob in the Colosseum that determined the course of history. You see, underground in catacombs, another force was working. A handful of men and women worshiping another king called Jesus, who had died and risen, was coming back, and who is coming back someday. If we had sat in those grandstands amidst the grandeur that was Rome, we too might have been deceived. For it was not the howling mob in the Colosseum, those that were cheering, those that were watching from their seats and determining the course of history. What was really happening was underground in catacombs. You see, there were worshipers, men and women, who were worshiping another king. That king was Jesus. They crept along the subterranean passageways and tunnels and among the tombs and caverns, the hunted and the persecuted. Some might say that they were the scum of the earth. But we, too, if we had prowled around in those gloomy depths, we might have come to what they came to. A song, a promise. They might have said, up above us are cheering crowds. But we know what's in our hearts, and we know to whom we belong. The catacombs overcame the Colosseum and finally put the amphitheater out of business. There is something fascinating about these saints of the catacombs. It has intrigued our writers and showed up in our tablets here now years later and in similar books today. We cannot forget this fellowship of simple believers who love Jesus Christ more than they love their own lives, in the world, but not of it, whose blood was the seed of the church. Here was a minority group in a pagan land, but like minority groups before and after, they changed the course of history. But we are a pretty comfortable crowd of Christians. We seem to forget that for us the gospel is not something to come to church to hear, but something to go to church to tell. The cause of Christ is not carried forward by a complacent Sunday morning bench warming, those who come to sit, but it's for those to go and tell. The cause of Christ is not carried forward by complacency. The cause of Christ is carried forth by those of us who sing and shout the victory. The worst of it is that we have moved from the arena into the grandstand, from the catacombs into the Colosseum, and we are tempted like never before to do as Rome does. When the church moves from persecution to popularity, from the arena into the grandstand. The gospel fire dies down into God starting another minority underground. He has followed this procedure throughout the centuries. Witness, if you will, the Pilgrims, the Quakers, the Wesleyan movement. The church languishes when her members wear medals in the grandstand. She prospers when they wear scars in the arena. And be not deceived. What a lot of people think is that the world is becoming more Christian, or is it the Christians are becoming more worldly? It is the day of the spectator. Decadent Rome sat in the grandstand, and America is a nation of onlookers today. Thousands upon thousands sit at football stadiums and baseball diamonds and horse races and watching man and beast in their mastery. They then go to the theater to be entertained all over again. And some of us go to church on Sunday again and again, simply as spectators and not participants. And the preacher is expected to perform for their enjoyment. They go home with no more intention of practicing the sermon and taking it seriously as the same as they did being entertained in the theater. It is all unreal. Even Christians sit like the listeners of Ezekiel's day, hearing the word, but doing it not. And going out having deceived themselves, being spectators, whether in an amphitheater or a church. It begs for us whether or not we are going to be participants in cheering for the world, or if we will be participants cheering for God.